And here we are on day 71 of the 100 days of narration sounds. I'm not sure what I'm doing right now, but I should probably stop so people can understand what I'm saying. Hi, everybody, day 71. That means it's, Day 2 of biography or autobiography week, because occasionally some of these won't actually be written or involve the original subject of the book that it's about. But it's all historical, real life stuff, nonfiction stuff about people who existed at one point or another. And for today's book, I thought I'd choose an entertainment figure whose works I've enjoyed in the past. And the book is called If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor by Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell being that wonderfully over-the-top, excellent actor, B-movie types thing. From Evil Dead series, he was on Xena, Hercules, the Spider-Man movies by Sam Raimi, Darkman. Yeah, he's in a lot of cool. Baba Hotep. Oh God, I almost forgot about that. I need to remind myself. Yeah, he was in that, wasn't he? Which was a wonderful film, wonderful film on so many levels, and so excellent that he was the one who played, spoilers, Elvis Presley. In a nursing home, because, you know, there's a certain thing about that. Anyway, what else can I tell you about Bruce Campbell and his life? Well, why don't I just read from the back of the book where all the blurbs are? And, yeah, I'll just read it and you can understand. And it's blurb at the top. It's the only book I ever read that I didn't have to. Slacker college student, Buffalo, New York. Ha ha! Self-deprecating. No, it's not self-deprecating humor. It's actually high praise for himself. Well, it's true. I mean, most college students don't usually read the entire textbook because it's boring stuff. Unless it's an interesting textbook. But that hardly ever happens. Anyway, let's keep reading this back here. Okay, so at least you're interested enough to pick up this book and look inside. I think you and I are going to get along just fine. Life is full of choices. Right now, yours is whether or not to buy this autobiography of a mid-grade, kind of hammy actor. Am I supposed to know this guy, you think to yourself? No. And that's exactly the point. Bookstores are chock full of household name actors and their high-stakes shenanigans. I don't want to be a spoil sport, but we've all been down that road before. Case in point, look to your left. See that Judy Garland book? You don't need that. You know plenty about her already. A great voice, crabby life. Now, look to your right at the Charlton Heston book. Yeah, you don't need to cough up hard-earned dough for that either. You know his story too. Great voice, crappy toupee. The truth is that though you might not have a clue who I am, there are countless working stiffs like me out there grinding away every day at the wheel of fortune. If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor is my first book, and I invite you to ride with me through the choppy waters of blue-collar Hollywood. Okay, so buy the damn book already, and read like the wind. Best, Bruce Campbell. P.S. If the book sucks, at least there are gobs of pictures, and they're not crammed in the middle like all those other actor books. Oh, Bruce, you cad. Bruce Campbell is the ultimate B actor with an ever-growing fan base. His films in the Evil Dead series are cult favorites, and his TV roles spark the same enthusiasm. He lives in Oregon. Cool beans. Okay, so that's the blurb. Now let's find a random page to go to and read from there. Hopefully it won't be full of pictures, because then that would be difficult, because then I have to read around the pictures. Maybe even describe the pictures. There are a lot of pictures. Wow, there are a lot of pictures. I haven't actually read this book at all, to be completely honest. Oh, no, I knocked something over. I hope it wasn't water. I mean, something with liquids inside it. So let's this page has pictures in it. Let's You know what? That's okay. Here. This looks good. Chapter 18 on page 101. Wow, these are really. Those must be really short chapters then. 18 chapters and it's only page 101. It must be like, what? 2-page chapters? 3-page chapters? And there's pictures too. Did I get ripped off? Is this book mostly pictures and blank pages? Man, that Bruce Campbell got me again. Got me again, Bruce. Got me again. Anyway, chapter 18. On your marks, get set. November 14th. The race began. Right from the get-go, filming was a comedy of errors or terrors, if you will. Within minutes of leaving for the first location, an abandoned bridge, the production van got lost and we spent a half hour trying to locate it. No sooner had we found it than Sam drove his classic into a ditch and we had to get a tow truck to tow it out. We had to get a tow truck to haul it out. Haul it, not tow it out, because we already had the word tow at the beginning. The next location was an isolated dirt road. Sam felt that a high, wide shot would be best. We weren't versed in the etiquette of location shooting, so no effort was made to get permission of any kind. We just hopped the fence and set up the camera. Things were going pretty well, until Josh spotted a large bull glaring at the crew. "Sam, there's a bull," Josh stated, flatly. "Yeah, hang on," Sam replied, focused on the shot at hand. "No, Sam, you don't get it. The bull is coming this way." Sam got in a hurry, and he was chased about 100 yards by the angry bovine. Man, what next, I thought. A cliff was next. About 2 hours later, Brother Don, scouting for an additional vantage point, lost his footing and tumbled headfirst off a nearby cliff. Apparently, he was well enough to get up under his own power, but he was taken to the hospital for some tests. Other than that, day one was very productive. A week later, shooting a night scene at the same bridge location, Sam had a little run-in with a tree branch. A construction winch was drawn around the side of the bridge to bend a steel girder into position. Unbeknownst to anyone, the cable was also around a large tree branch that promptly snapped when tension was applied to the cable. It flattened Sam, a limb of easily 50 pounds. He staggered back and sat on the wrecker, dazed. "Sam, you okay?" I asked. "Why wouldn't I be?" he asked back, a blank look on his face. At first glance, he seemed fine, but upon closer inspection, he was pale. His lips were white and crusty, and a small amount of blood was trickled from his left nostril. "Well, you don't look so good. What the hell happened?" "Oh, I just needed to sit down for a little bit." With that, he rallied himself and carried on shooting. On the way home that night, he passed out cold. During the next 3 months, Evil Dead left a path of destruction through the South as wide as Sherman's march to the sea. Among other things, we destroyed the paint job of a white pickup truck, bent the housing of our 16mm camera, ripped the roof off a rental truck with the help of a low-slung tree branch, and crushed the septic system of my folks' home in northern Michigan. And now there's a new chapter heading here, Sam I Am. We're not plagued by Murphy and his endless series of laws. We did manage to get some work done. For instance, Sam made some remarkable strides as a visually oriented director. Early on, his directing style became evident. He was never big on shooting a master, usually a wide shot, allowing the scene to play from beginning to end. He was much more apt to break scenes down into a series of shots based on his own indecipherable thumbnail sketches, and shoot only the pieces he needed. This afforded him a great deal of precision, but it's not a method that's applauded by your organically inclined actor. The funny thing was, the actors were all so green, myself included, that none of us really knew the difference. Sam wasn't one for the standard medium shot close-up over-the-shoulder angles that most film and television shows use to cover a scene. As an actor, I found myself being photographed from every conceivable angle. If Sam could have put that camera up my nose, I think he would have done it. There's an entire sequence in the film where every shot was photographed at a 45-degree Dutch tilted angle. That's quite severe. I must admit, we all thought Sam was crazy when the scheme was revealed, but he was the director. The results were very effective and hold up pretty well, even against the cockeyed MTV style used regularly today. As a result of Sam's boldness, this shoot spawned a number of low-tech but unique camera rigs. Early tracking shots were easily accomplished from a wheelchair. When the moves needed to be smoother or more precise, the Ramo Cam was used. And here there's a picture of it, but I think he goes on to describe it. This was basically a poor man's dolly. It consists dolly. Yeah, dolly. It consisted of several 2x4s placed on top of sawhorses. Sawhorses. The 2x4s were covered with silver duct tape, thereby providing a smooth, knot-free surface. The tape was then greased with household Vaseline. Next, the camera was bolted to a U-shaped wood device that was laid on top of the Vaseline. Now, the camera could smoothly proceed along its track, stopping on a dime if need be. The device was lightweight, very portable, and even better, really cheap. That's actually that's a really excellent idea, actually. Wow. That's mad. That's like practical special effects mad. That's cool. Anyway, the next invention of necessity was the shaky cam. This was the polar opposite of its big budget, hence completely unavailable to us, brother. The steady cam. Our version was merely a 3-foot hunk of 2x6 board with a camera bolted in the middle. The camera slapped on a wide-angle lens, grabbed the board at either end, and ran like hell. On film, the end result was an evil roaming entity that could leap tall shrubs in a single bound. Oops, sorry, hit the mic there. And we got the shaky cam picture here, and it's just a camera on a piece of wood. Oh dear. Well, now we know. Now I know how those shots were accomplished. Well, the old Evil Dead. I haven't seen the new Evil Dead. I should probably do that sometime. It's gotten pretty good reviews from what I've heard. Then there was the elevator, named after its first victim, Ellen Sandweiss. Ellen Sandweiss? Sandweiss. Part of me wants to say Sandweiss, but maybe it's Sandweiss. Weiss, rather. The more English version. The rig was based on an old magic trick and allowed her to float in the air as if possessed without wires. Sam, a former bar mitzvah style magician, okay, often used simple trickery in his films. To him, motion pictures were the ultimate sleight of hand. He once explained it this way. The point isn't to just make the film. The point isn't just to make the film. It's to amaze yourself and everyone at the same time. If you think what you're doing is neat, chances are everyone else will too. And there's a picture of how Ellen was lifted up. Apparently there's a harness on the back. She was wearing a harness on her back, and it's like attached to a giant pole that's actually a kind of lever, and then you'll just lever her up and down. As opposed to using wires. So there's no need to paint over the wires because it's all invisible, at least from one angle, from the front angle. If you had to shoot from the back, then the harness would have to be moved about. Okay. Moving on. But who could forget the Ramo Cam? Need an evil entity to ram through a plate glass window? No problem. This rig consisted of a 2x4 with a T-bar at the end, which would prevent injury by smashing the glass well ahead of the probing camera. With a total wholesale price of around $3.50, it also prevented costly budget overruns. When all else failed, we just taped the damned When all else failed, we just taped the damn camera to Sam's hand. The opening shot of Evil Dead consisted of me pushing Sam in a rubber raft across a swamp while he leaned out, skimming the camera across the water and swooping over decaying branches. Lest you forget, the number one rule of the bee jungle is, when in doubt, make it up as you go along. And then there's another chapter title here, Brinkmanship. Brinkmanship. Given the factors of inexperience, a distant location, and the early arrival of an unusually harsh winter, our perfect plan of a 6-week shoot rapidly turned into 8, then 10, then 12 weeks. Sam's script called for the main characters to endure countless woes during the course of one interminable night. Interminable. I don't know that word. Indeterminable I do know, but interminable? Interminable. I need to look that up later. One interminable night. It kind of worked this way. If you weren't possessed by a demon, you were being chased by one. If you weren't killed, you were at least caught and soon wished you had been. If killed, however, your character would come back to life as an unstoppable monster. As you might imagine, the actors were pushed to the brink of human endurance very quickly. One such scene called for Teresa Saferth's character to be hacked apart with an axe. Because the film had no rating, we really didn't film any scenes to meet the MPAA. Because the film had no rating, and we really didn't film any scenes to meet MPAA guidelines, Sam figured it would be cool to see her parts flopping about on the floor. This required Teresa to be placed partially under the floor with very specific boards fitted carefully around her neck. This way, she could remain an animated, decapitated creature. And torment those around her. Torment being the operative word. Rob Tapert, who foolishly agreed to play her disembodied leg and arm, had to get into position next to her. Underneath the floorboards, their intertwined bodies resembled a perverted game of Twister. By the time everything was put into place, which was several hours later, Rob was getting horrible leg cramps. Teresa also felt that she had been uncomfortable long enough and was ready to get out. Sam, in a rare moment of compassion, agreed. That's when I had to step in. Look, the whole thing sucks. Everyone's uncomfortable, but getting out right now isn't the answer because we're just gonna have to put you back in again. Let's just shoot the damn thing right now and be done with it. After we shot that scene, Teresa never looked at me the same way again. And then we had a picture of how they accomplished the shot with the bodies under the floor. Then it was Alan Sandweiss's turn. One of the two. Sandweiss's turn to endure the hardships of stardom. A scene in the film called for her to race through the woods, dressed only in a nightie and slippers, hoping to escape the evil force. This entailed an entire night of clawing her way, literally, through the dense foliage around the... Foliage? Through the dense... Foliage? Foliage looks more right, sounds more right to me. Through the dense foliage around the cabin. Oh, did I mention that it was about 40 degrees outside? I'm assuming that's Fahrenheit, because 40 degrees Celsius is, that's warm. That's really, really warm. After the 20-second take, Ellen fell hard and gashed a leg. She began cursing and stated flatly that she couldn't film any more that night. Shooting came to a halt. Rob pulled Josh aside while the crew wrapped to point out drops. Rob pulled Josh aside while the crew wrapped to point out drops of blood left in Ellen's wake. Oh, that's meant to be a Rob pulled Josh aside while the crew rapped to point out drops of blood left in Ellen's wake. Okay, there's meant to be 2 commas in there. I like it when an actor bleeds, he exclaimed. It makes me feel like I got my money's worth. You sound like an asshole, man. Later, it was Betsy Baker's turn. Her big scene took place in a makeshift graveyard up the hill from the cabin. Betsy Baker, as Linda, had just come back from the dead. You've all downloaded the script off the internet, right? As she attempts to kill the dim-witted Ash, me. He defends himself by smashing "It's murder" beams over her head. These styrofoam beams, whose normal use is to create a rustic look in mobile home dens across America, were used extensively in Sam's epic Super 8 film, It's Murder, and became identified with the same. The scene was to progress like this. Betsy approaches. I swing. The beam cracks over her head, and she spits out a milky bile. Hoping to avoid putting in the cumbersome white contact lenses, we applied white makeup to her eyelids instead. As long as she kept her eyes closed, you wouldn't really notice the fakery in the middle of a scuffle. Therefore, Betsy had no way of really knowing what was going to hit her, when, or how hard. For a close-up, Sam and I lined up both sides of the camera with beams to get the maximum number of hits without stopping to reset. Upon action, I would swing my portion of the beam and break it over her head. Break it over her head. Break it over her head. God, I hate it when I do that. Just skip over words. Break it over her head. Break it over her head. That's different. For a close-up, Sam and I lined up both sides of the camera with beams to get the maximum number of hits without stopping to reset. Upon action, I swing my portion of the beam and break it over her head. Sam would then follow this with a blistering smack that would send Betsy into a rage. Sam would apologize, set up for another take, and do the exact same thing again. Here's what you got. Sam, and then we get a little script. Sam says, action! Bruce's hit, whack! Sam's hit, crack! Betsy saying, God damn it, Sam! After the third cranium-rattling blow, Betsy defiantly spewed milk, a bile substitute, in every direction, mostly into the camera lens. This, in turn, pissed off the cameraman, Tim Philo, so went a typical night. I wasn't left out of the torment loop, not by a long shot. In fact, since I shared a longer working relationship with Sam than anyone else on the set, I became the very least of Sam's worries. Sam knew too much, way too much, and it worked against me. I'm not crying foul, but I can guarantee that Teresa, Ellen, and even Betsy were nodding to themselves thinking, hey, I gotta wear these damn contact lenses, but at least I don't have to get the living shit beaten out of me every single day. There's no single in there. But at least I don't have to get the living shit beaten out of me every day. One occasion got out of hand. After filming yet another vicious graveyard encounter, I ran down a steep hill, rejoicing that we had finished the scene. On the way down, my foot caught in a root, and my ankle turned in a direction that was diametrically opposed to the way I was going. I hit the ground, curled up in pain. Sam and Rob thought this was particularly hilarious, and prodded me to get off my ass. There was more to shoot. I managed to get to my feet, but that was about it. Next thing I knew, Sam had a pretty good-sized stick. I can't do that. I can't go from sized stick. I'd have to say it separately. Sam had a pretty good-sized stick. No. Sam had a pretty good-sized stick. See, I had to do that. I had to do that little pause. Otherwise, Sam had a pretty good-sized stick. That's okay, but now people are thinking, did he say good size or good-sized? And, yeah. Okay, just keep going. What the hell is he gonna do with that, I thought. Then Rob appeared with one of his own. They circled me, like Amazon tribesmen around a downed animal, and began poking my ankle. I couldn't help but laugh at the insanity of it all. The misinterpreted angst only spurred them on, and I was soon huddled in the corner of the back of the room pleading. No, let's try that again. This misinterpreted angst only spurred them on, and I was soon huddled in the corner of a back room pleading for them to stop. The scene we filmed later that night recorded a very visible on-camera limp, and now you can tell the world why. Okay, that seems like a good place to stop. Anyway, yeah, that was quite fun. Lots of stumbles there, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. Lots of stumbles. Okay, that was day 71 of the 100 Days of Narration Challenge, and that was If Chins Could Kill! Confessions of a B-Movie Actor by Bruce Campbell. Written by Bruce Campbell. Yes, very good. Very good. So there was day 71. So I hope you enjoyed that. Tomorrow we will go on with our autobiography or biography theme, and we'll be doing day 72. Day 72. See you then for that. Hey, you seem like a cool, wonderful, and or awesome individual with impeccable taste in voice actors. So why not follow me on Facebook or Twitter? You can keep up with the latest projects I'm in, or that my friends are in, or that you could be in, because I occasionally post links to open auditions to various projects that require voice acting out there, or that nobody's in, but they're interesting projects nonetheless that you may also find interesting. Also, lots of random thoughts about whatever's on my mind at that particular moment. Usually it's about food or video games, or foodie video games. Anyway, you can follow me on Facebook at OmadonVA or Twitter at Omadon. Hope to see you there.